Welcome back to Meet the Makers. Today I have another awesome guest with us, a 3D printer. Josh, you may know him online as Dorkvader. So excited to have you here today.
I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
Of course. Can you just tell us a little bit how you got into 3D printing and making stuff in general?
Making stuff in general, I started as a kid. I don't even know what age. I always made different things for costumes and such. I used to use, much to my dad's frustration when he found out, fishing poles, and I made Harry Potter wands out of them with painting them and stuff. I used to make lightsabers out of wooden dowels, and I'd wrap them with duct tape and tinfoil tape they use for like air ducting because it made it look nice and silvery. So I've always liked making stuff. But 3D printing, it was almost 2 years ago actually, because I bought it beginning of December, delivered just after Christmas about 2 years ago. What would that be? 2022.
Yeah, I think so.
But I bought it to make cosplay stuff because some things are just absurdly expensive. The one that really pushed me into it is, I'm still working on it now, but Captain Jack Sparrow. He has a very particular flintlock that he uses, and it's the actual flintlock he uses in the movies is a actual one from like the 16th century. But I couldn't find any online that weren't like $1,500 replicas, which is insane. And Nico Industries actually had a model for $10. So I got the printer, I got that, and actually made it. And it's actually, I don't even know how to see it, but it's up here on my wall right there. Yeah, and then just from there, it snowballed into a bit of an obsession and a full-time hobby.
You and I actually must have started right around the same time then. I think, September 2022, if I'm doing the math right, I started. And yeah, it's crazy how expensive some of those props out there for, I don't cosplay myself, but I have some friends do. And sometimes I hear about their entire outfit, like how much it costs. I'm like, wow, it's really nuts. For you and your content, I mostly see, it looks like you're primarily printing on an Ender 3B2. Is that your main printer right now?
That's my only printer, actually. I've considered getting other printers, or other people be like, hey, I have this old one, like, I could send it to you if you want to pay the shipping costs. I'm like, I have a very small house. My boyfriend and I both have, we both live in the same house, but it's small, it's old. I'm actually sitting in my dining room and my computer's sitting at the table right now, just so I can get a good background shot. But I just don't have the room for a bigger printer at the moment. Maybe someday I'd get a bigger one and put it upstairs. I am considering it for, especially if I continue to go into cosplaying stuff, because armor tends to be big pieces sometimes.
I also started an Ender 3B2, and I have many fond memories of my printer. I still have them in my other room over there, but no, it was the same for me when I first got into it. The room that I was in, it's still the same situation for me where I'm sitting right now. It's my work from home office, and I have my 3D printer behind me. It can definitely be a limiting factor there for all the machines that you might want to have versus all the machines that you can't have there.
But it's amazing what you can do on smaller printers too. I'm sure it's easier on bigger printers, but smaller printers can do a lot. Actually, my helmet back there, the Batman Mandalorian helmet, I printed in 4 pieces on my Ender 3. And then I plastic welded it all together. Like, you can absolutely do these bigger projects. Does it take more work? Absolutely. I'm not going to lie. It takes a lot more work. But it's totally doable.
Yeah, no, for sure. That was my first and only helmet that I've ever made up until this point. Was a Mandalorian helmet. At that point, I was printing on my Ender 3B2s, and I had to print them all out separately and plastic weld them together. And I would definitely see those people who had large format printers. I'd be pretty jealous because they just run it in one piece and they were good to go. So it's a different process, but I think that's the cool thing that I enjoyed about so much of the content out there. I learned so much from different people's content online. And I know for you do a lot of different videos on the Enders and different modifications you've done to them. For you, it looks like you've done quite a few. Maybe it's mostly visual because your Ender 3v2 it's way cooler than mine ever looked. But it seems like you've done quite a few modifications to yours. What would you say is like your favorite thing or some of the most practical things that you've done to that printer?
I really like the kind of stripes that slide into the V-slots. Those I really like. But probably one of the most practical things I have is off on the side, I have a little 2-tier drawer. I have a Raspberry Pi, so I can send the files through the internet to that, but I like to use the micro SD card. My bottom drawer has my flash drive with all my files in it, and my top drawer has a little micro SD card holder. So I use that literally every single time I print.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you say that you prefer the micro SD cards, because honestly, that was for me one of the things I hated the most about the Ender was the micro SD. I would always lose them. I'm not very organized. I'd put it down for 1 second and then it would just be gone forever. So that was one of the things I struggled the most with that printer. But here you have that Raspberry Pi set up on there. That's a cool thing. And I think for yours, maybe I saw, do you run Octoprint on there as well?
Yeah, that's what I use. And there's a couple different versions of Octoprint. Octoprint is like just the normal base version, but you can also open up and use Octo everywhere, it's called. So I can be at work if I have it running. I can check on my printer and I can stop it if it's messing up. They also implement, I think Bamboo has something similar. They implement like an AI system where it can try to see if it's messing up, if there's spaghetti, if it looks
Yeah.
like a support's failing. And I've actually gotten alerts before where it's like, oh, we think there's an issue. And I come over and it's just because of the angle, it makes it look like the support's tipping over, but it's because it's a tree support. It's just doing its
Oh,
little
okay.
thing.
Now, for you, with having Octoprint, the Raspberry Pi, all the different things that you have on there, I know for me, when I first got into 3D printing, I'm not very tech savvy. So I was pretty intimidated by things like setting up Raspberry Pis and setting up Octoprint. I at one point had, I don't know if you remember seeing it, but the Creality Sonic Pad, I don't think it's as popular now, but it was like a plug and play version of that. For you, was it difficult setting that stuff up? And do you maybe have a background in that made you confident?
I had no idea what I was doing. Honestly, it was actually a gift that my boyfriend got to me for Christmas. I've been talking about, oh, it'd be cool to get a Raspberry Pi. I just didn't want to get one because they were getting pretty expensive. And he'd
Yeah.
already gotten me one, and then I got it for
Oh,
Christmas. And that's also the reason why I don't send the files through there a lot. I don't entirely understand how it works. And I
yeah.
know the micro SD card works, so I've been sticking with that. But no, I just did a lot of searching online. There's a lot of great Facebook groups for Ender printers, Creality printers. I just post on there, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Can anybody give me some tips? Just different websites I'd find, and just I end up figuring it out. I'm still working on it because I want to learn time lapses, but I haven't gotten that to work yet.
I think the interesting thing about 3D printing is there's the component of it, obviously, where you're making 3D prints and you're post processing them and you're finishing them. And that's still a whole own hobby in and of itself. But then, especially with the enders, there's the other side of it, which is like the tinkering with the actual machine and figuring out how to do all those things with the Raspberry Pis. And for me, my machines were constantly, mostly from user error, constantly breaking. And I was doing poor upgrades to them. So it was this whole other side to a hobby of really just like getting your printer dialed in. For you, would you say being in this hobby and using that machine, are you somebody who enjoys that tinkering side of things?
I really do enjoy tinkering. I always like to just find out how things worked from that almost like an engineering sort of perspective of it. I want to know how it works, why it works, and then some of this stuff that's more mechanical is just easier and simpler to comprehend for me. But some of the stuff like all the electrical components, I don't entirely know how they work, but I haven't looked into too much of that at the moment. But I also think to a point, especially when people start with the bamboo, that can not necessarily be the most helpful thing because bamboos do tend to be a little more plug and play, which is
Yeah.
great. It's an awesome thing. But when then it breaks down, they're like, why did it break down?
Yeah.
Whereas some of us that not say grew up on endos, but I guess it is, we've learned at least basic just PMs and maintenance on it. And then that really translates into the basics of a lot of different parts of 3D printing.
I couldn't agree more. As many times as I would be working on my unders and I would be cursing my unders, and I was like, man, if only it was just easier and if only these things weren't breaking every day. I really do think all the times that I had to fix that printer when I got to my bamboo, it was really like a luxury. But even still to this day, when things go wrong, it's so much easier to fix it now because I was so used to clearing out a clogged nozzle or moving the PTF tubing around. Where definitely I've had friends who have they weren't into 3D printing and then right away they just got a bamboo. And for them, I think they struggle a lot more when things go wrong just from the standpoint of not having that background in it. If you're the type of person out there who's interested in tinkering or you're willing to get your hands dirty with the machines, I still to this day, I think the Under 3 V2s or any version of the Enders really, I think they're a great machine to start on. Now, for you, so it's interesting hearing that it sounds like the cosplay world was something that pushed you into 3D printing initially. Can you maybe tell us more about some of the cosplays that you've done? Because what I know you most from your profile picture is your Mad Hatter cosplay, which I just think is the coolest thing ever. But is that kind of like your main cosplay, or do you have other ones that you've dabbled in?
I have a closet upstairs. It's full of costumes and stuff. I tend to call them cosplays just because costumes are, it's like an all-encompassing term for it. But cosplays tend to be way more detailed than just a simple costume. I've actually only been to one convention. I went 2 years in a row. I'm going to plan on going again next year. It's just a small local convention for me. It's called EverCon. And I really enjoyed it the last 2 years. It's just because I guess I don't know if it's technically cosplaying or not most of the time, just because I do it for fun. But I do have a lot of different ones. But yeah, my Mad Hatter is definitely my favorite one. And it's the most finished one. I have quite a few up there that I've been working on over the years. I mentioned my Jack Sparrow one. I started that when I was probably like 13, 15.
Oh, wow.
And there's parts of it I look at now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to change that. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, it's again, I don't cosplay myself, but I follow a lot of people online who do. And I think what's cool about it is seeing people's kind of evolution of maybe they cosplay certain characters over the years, but seeing how that evolves for them and just slowly building up to be a more advanced version of that. I was laughing. I saw for you on the Mad Hatter, you had this video where you had found this different vest for it. And it was like so similar, but it was slightly more detailed and slightly better. And you were like so excited about it. And I think that's a really cool thing about cosplay in general is just the attention to detail that I see people have with their costumes in general.
One thing I find a lot about cosplay is a lot of people think like you need to make everything. I don't know how to sew, so I can't do that. That first vest that I had, I cut those squares out and I used 3M spray glue and stuck them on. So anything on that vest. And then I think always working on improving it is something that people should always try to do. You might like it now, but why not make it just that little bit better? It might not be a lot. For me, I find a lot of my stuff secondhand. I'll go to Goodwill or something. I'll buy this the blue vest is what I got. Then I found some fabric, found some ribbon, and I sewed all the squares on, sewed all that ribbon on, added some extra colors and stuff, swapped out the buttons. Realistically, it's basic use of a sewing machine. It's not complicated at all. I don't know how to do fancy stuff on the sewing machine. I just did whatever the zigzag stitch is, just because it has more thread in there holding it down tight so it won't fray. I don't really know what I'm doing on a lot of the stuff I do, but that's part of the fun. It's the adventure of learning and figuring stuff out as you go along, which is also funny for me to say because I want a plan if I'm starting on, like, okay, I'm going to do this and this and this. I don't like just necessarily just go, okay, we're going to try.
No, I always think sewing, people who can sew very effectively, those people are truly wizards because I've tried my hand at that a few times. And you would think something like maybe 3D printing would translate well, but I feel like zero skill that translates over to sewing. I have a very difficult time with that. You mentioned thrifting some of the pieces. And one of the things that initially I saw in your content that instantly got me so excited is a different thing that you thrift and find from different places, which is uranium glass. Can you, for people who maybe aren't familiar with it, can you tell us a little bit about what uranium glass is?
Yeah, so it's actually a glass that they used to add uranium. I think originally it started in like 1830s. You added uranium salts, I think is what they called it. Small amounts on it, and I actually grabbed some samples in case this came up. But it made it a greenish color. And it's almost like, a lot of them are like a lime green. But the thing about them is that when the sunlight hits them, they almost look like they glow a little bit. Because they do. It's what the UV from the sun is making them fluoresce just a little bit. But if you put a UV light on them, they glow like really nice. And it looks way better in person, like literally neon green. And I don't know how it looks on the camera, but it never turns up as good as it should. But they were really popular from, I think it was like 1880s to like 1920s. And of course, the 1940s hit, and they actually had laws against, okay, you can't use this in glass making. And they found other ways to make that nice green color because it continued to be actually fairly popular. And then I want to say in the 60s, it started up again. And actually some companies still use it. I'd found this piece. It's a Vaseline glass. And I'd asked the company, because I was like, oh, how old is it? And they go, oh, yeah, we made that from 2010 to 2015. I was like, what?
That's funny.
That they still do that, which is just, it's crazy. It's so cool, though.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that about uranium glass, that they would still make things like that, because maybe you won't be able to see it, but I have one small piece back there. And every time I see it, I always assumed that it was like this super old vintage piece. So now you have me wondering if maybe the piece that I have is not as old as I think, because I always thought that it was this super old relic. For you, I'm curious what maybe got you initially interested in uranium glass. Did you ever read the book Radium Girls?
I have not read the book. I know when I started collecting it, my mom's, have you not seen the play? Why are you having this stuff? But I always liked glass. I had a shelf of jars in my room as a kid. And then when I found out about uranium glass, I rushed back to my parents and shined my black light up there. And I was really disappointed that none of them were uranium. But I don't know. I've always found the glass, just different kinds of glass, just really interesting. And as far as uranium glass, there's a lot of different kinds. You've got Vaseline, you've got uranium, you can get like custard glass, jadeite, and then, yeah, you have things like radium, which is slightly different than uranium. It is, I believe it comes from the same element. Somebody's probably going to tell me I'm wrong. But radium, like things like compasses and clocks, are actually very radioactive. And if you collect that, I would recommend getting a Geiger counter, which you can actually get pretty cheap on Amazon. I got mine for $50 or $45. They're not that expensive. But I got it because I found out that my boyfriend's got an old compass that was his, I want to say great-grandfather's. And I found that it is actually a radium compass. So what the radium was, it was the paint. And they had radium ore in it, and that's what would make it glow. And pretty much most clocks pre-70s that have glow-in-the-dark paint is actually radium-based paints. And after that, they realized, oh no, this is toxic, or this is radioactive, this is not good. So then they went to, I think it was something called luminol, which is incredibly toxic. So this is better than being radioactive. And they've had better things nowadays, of course, because you can get glow-in-the-dark acrylic paint and you can use it fine. But it is something that the radiation from it is minimal. Even the really bad clocks, you put a piece of paper in front of them and it's not going to read. While it is something to be cautious about, it's not, having it in your home is not a huge health hazard. But you need to be careful because if that glass breaks, usually there's particles of that, and ingesting the radium is actually what's super harmful, which is actually what the radium girls were. They'd lick their paintbrushes and then dip it in the paint so they get the really fine number, and then they'd lick it again and dip it in more paint. And actually ingesting the radium paint is what caused just the horrible cancers and everything they had. It can be dangerous, but if you done, they're really beautiful pieces a lot of the time.
Yeah, it was a number of years ago that I had read the book, and that kind of interested me in the whole world of just radium dial watches and uranium glass, and I just have always thought that was super cool. When I saw somebody else who was interested in collecting it, I instantly was interested in your content. You also have cadmium glass?
Yeah, cadmium glass.
Yeah. I'm not as familiar with that. It doesn't have any radioactiveness to it or anything like that?
Nope. It's just, cadmium is actually a heavy metal. I actually just found it at an estate sale, and I have a video that I'm probably going to be putting up soon about it. But it's called selenium glass. They're both heavy metals, and they put them into the glass. So you ever seen glass like the ruby red? It's really, really nice red color. Yeah. Originally, that was made with, I want to say it was melted gold dripped into the glass and mixed in, and you get this really nice red color. But then they also use cadmium. They found if you let it cool and then you heat part of the glass again, you'll end up with this transition from yellow to red to orange, or from red to orange to yellow, sorry. And it gets this really nice color to it, and that became known as amberina glass. But the cadmium, it's not harmful to people. I probably wouldn't recommend drinking out of it, especially anything acidic. But that's also goes the same for things like leaded glass and like the selenium glass. Selenium glass you should be more careful with, but you can handle that stuff. It's not like you're going to hold it and just be like, oh, the metals are leaching into my skin, it's toxic. It's not that kind of toxic. But then under certain different black lights, they really get a really cool color. Like the cadmium will often glow like a yellowish orange, and selenium will be pink. Like the color of pink that's actually behind your head right now on those lights. That's the color that the glass will fluoresce. It's really cool.
For you have your glass collections, and something that I've noticed in your content is your house seems to almost be a very magical place. I've seen videos where you're pulling these like skeleton keys out of your house, and then you seemingly have meteorites that are falling out of the sky in your house. Can you maybe just tell us a little bit more about the backstory of the meteorite that was another piece of content that I found to be very interesting from your side?
So that, I don't think it's a meteorite. I did some testing and this stuff. While it's possible, I'm pretty sure it's just what's called a sonorous rock, or people call them ringing rocks. There's parks in, I know, Pennsylvania and Montana. They have some in Australia, and I think South Wales has some pretty famous ones. But it has to do with the density, the crystalline structure, and amounts of iron in it. they're pretty sure. But the funny thing is, the more I dug into it, the more info I found that just said, okay, geologists know it's usually these things. Scientifically speaking, they don't know exactly why they do it. They can go, it's like this, but there are ones that have the same kind of makeup that don't. They don't know why. So they can say, okay, this is why it rings, but why does that not ring? They have no idea. So it's just a thing they know that it is, but it's just a mystery. But the reason I know, if people go back into my videos and they see that, they notice that it's like weeks between updates on that. That's actually some land that we bought for camping at about an hour north of us. I got a lot of comments on that video like, why is this person walking around hitting rocks?
Actually, now that you say it, yeah, how did you in the first? I don't know that my instinct would to be walking around and hitting all the rocks. How did you even find that it was making that sound in the first place?
There were a pile of rocks that we moved when we had some holes dug out for different things. One got pulled out of a hole that was probably about 5-6 feet down, and then they just made a pile. Those people who previously had our land had a retaining wall put in, so I figured, I was like, okay, this other little area, I'm going to roll these bigger rocks over, push them up, and make a little mini retaining wall, add to the kind of aesthetic, it'll look nice. And as I'm rolling it, it's rolling over stuff, and I'm like, what the heck is that noise? I keep hearing this little, like, ting, like you're hitting a little piece of china. And okay, is this rock? So I grabbed a rock and tapped it. I'm like, what the heck? It was the craziest thing. And then I remember very vividly, like when okay, I'll just make a video of this and I'll put it on TikTok or put it on Facebook or something. And after I took the video, I'm like, this is the kind of dumb shit that's going to go viral.
Yeah.
I think every once in a while now, because that video is months old, suddenly it'll be like a kick where I'll get another 100,000 views for I don't know why. It's because it's a weird thing that just everybody comments on. But I think it has 4 million views now, which is insane to me.
That's crazy. Isn't it funny how it's something that you can plan out this great idea for the content and you can put all this time into it, and then it's the random thing that just happens to come about that you never planned for, never expected, that ends up being like a piece of content that goes viral.
Oh, I know. And that could be really frustrating too for content, just making content. Which that's something I'm really new to also. I don't know if, did you do content before TikTok? Or is this kind of was that kind of like your approach to it? Or...
Yeah, so I feel like I've been doing content forever. Way back in the day when I was super young, I had started doing YouTube, maybe like 13 at the time or so. And I remember doing YouTube at that point in time. It was so long ago on YouTube, like the screens were squares and there was a star rating. There weren't thumbs up and thumbs down. It was way different. And I remember I'd be like making YouTube videos and my mom would hear me or I'd tell my friends about it. And people were like, you're filming a video of yourself and you're putting it on the internet. They're like, that's really weird. Whereas nowadays, if you're like, I'm making a YouTube video, like everyone gets it. Everybody like knows what it is. But back then there was no monetization. The idea of being a YouTuber wasn't a thing. It was like really weird. I would make like these goofy little videos back then just for fun. And then some time went by, I got away from doing it. Fast forward, I had started a small houseplant business. For a long time, I was actually making houseplant content on YouTube. And around that time, that's when TikTok started getting popular. On and off, follow Gary Vee, but he would always be talking about TikTok. It's a huge opportunity that you're missing. When TikTok was new, it was just people doing silly little dances on TikTok. And I was like, I'm a terrible dancer, so I don't know if this is for me. But for whatever reason, I decided to try it for houseplants. So I started there on TikTok, and then slowly right around that time, I just happened to get a 3D printer by chance for the houseplant business. I was like, maybe I can 3D print pots. It stemmed in this whole thing where I was like, maybe I'll make separate social media for 3D printing. And just by a happy accident, I posted my first 3D printing video, and so many of the people that we now know nowadays and are friends with commented and were so encouraging and nice. It just made me keep doing it. And it really was an accident that I even got into doing 3D printing in the first place. So that's the whole journey of how I got here. But now fast forward and we're here on a podcast and I make 3D printing content every day. So it's been crazy for sure.
So it's something that you were familiar with it though?
Yeah, for sure. But flipping that over to your side, for you, what kind of initially made you get into content or decide that you wanted to do content?
I don't know exactly what made me want to do that. I actually think that Flintlock on my wall was the first video I posted. I actually scrolled back before the podcast. I'm like, I wonder what the first video I posted was. And it was an audio that was like post something that you made that you have no reason to post it, but just to show it off. Yeah. And that was the first thing. And some people are like, oh, that's really cool. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. I don't know why people would want to watch the videos I make, but okay. And then I just added some more, and I'd never done content before. So doing that video was the first time I'd ever done something that I filmed and posted on there besides, posting just a video on Facebook or something. But then I think it was probably like 3 or 4 months before I even put my face on there. Cause I'm like, it just wasn't something not that I wasn't comfortable showing myself. It just wasn't something I was comfortable as filming, and it was just a new thing for me. And I'm trying to learn, okay, what am I doing here? And then it evolved into just other stuff. And I do say that I've been following you for a long time. I know Brady Beats World mentioned me on their podcast. And I was watching that. I was like, she knows who I am. Like, I feel like a celebrity. But I don't know. I feel like we tend to have similar content because it's okay, a lot of 3D printing, but also here's this random stuff that ADHD pulled in, and now it's gone, and now here's the new thing. It's just whatever little bits of things make me happy. I like to post things about just all different stuff. It is primarily 3D print stuff, but as I'm becoming more comfortable with content creating, and I'm actually really enjoying it, probably how long have I been doing this? Probably about a year and a half I've been actually making content. But about a year ago, I realized, okay, I can post some stuff and help people and answer questions, which is so weird to somebody who's still 2 years. But I feel like I'm still brand new to 3D printing because there's a lot I don't know, especially watching other printers. But just that I could help people, or people would ask me a question on why this is happening, or how to fix this, or different kinds of models. I always wanted to help. I want to help people. I want to make people happy, just inspire people. But it just felt weird that I was the one being asked when there's other people that are doing this better than me. But I think you're always going to get that. There's always going to be something who can do stuff better than you, who can do more than you. And actually, I got a good one for this that I'm sure you've noticed because you follow Brady and I'm sure Brady Bensky, Asylum Life. They're working with, I want to say her handle is Feral 3D. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But they are organizing 3D print cares again, and we're going to send a bunch of prints to the areas affected by Hurricane Helene. And as of, I think it was yesterday or the day before, we've had over 4,000 prints pledged to be made. They're doing a lot more logistics than we did when we did 3D print cares last. If people if watching this podcast and they want to check it out, it's asylumlife.com/3D print cares. You can sign up as a maker. There's quantities at 10. If you want to make 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever prints, however many you want, put them in bags of 10 and wait for them to contact you because you put your phone number in there. They'll call you and so say, hey, our next area we're going to send to is this area. Then they'll give you the shipping info, then you send it. And I think the first batch of 500 went out. There's a Discord on this, and I'm watching these people. They're like, oh, I just pledged 300 prints. I pledged 100 prints. It makes me feel like, okay, I'm not doing a lot. Actually, just before the podcast, I had a plate finish 2 minutes before, and I've got 16 now. I could fit 4 to 6 prints on my build plate, but I am still going to keep printing. I want to do at least 20. I'm going to try to do more, because even though some other people are able to do a lot more, potentially if I send 20, that's 20 more kids that might have a toy that might not have if I didn't do anything. And it's granted the people who can do a lot are contributing a lot, but if everybody who could do 100 only contributed, you'd have a lot less, because you have 10 people that sign up on 20, you've got 200 prints right there. It's not a lot, but it adds up. Just because somebody can do more, somebody can do better, doesn't mean you shouldn't. As long as don't make yourself do it if you don't want to. Unless you gotta brush your teeth, you gotta take a shower sometimes, even if you don't want to, but it's just a good thing to do. Just get yourself out there, keep doing things that make yourself happy and helping others.
I think I relate to you a lot in the sense that I am not the best 3D printer. I don't know the most. In fact, I probably know a lot less than most of the people out there. But I think what's cool is that a lot of times, obviously, the people who know all this knowledge, they're great and they put out great information. But I think sometimes when you're so new to learning things, learning from somebody who maybe knows not as much, they have a simpler approach to it and they can explain things in a way that is a little more digestible. And maybe it's just like a way that you relate to a little more. I think everybody takes in information differently. And They like people's different spin on hearing the same piece of information. Even though maybe you or I might not be the most knowledgeable person in the world, it's cool that we both get to put out content. And even if that helps one person out there who didn't know how to do it, it's one more person who gets brought into this world of 3D printing, which is really cool. 3D Print Cares is something that it's newer, and I think Brady and Bensky and all those guys, like, they're going to do such a great job with it. It's cool to hear that it already sounds like it's progressed a lot more from the first time that we did it. And I know so many prints went out for that. And I know it got to a point where it's almost chaotic for them to manage all the stuff that was coming in. It sounds like their new distribution system for that's going to be really cool. But I completely agree. Even if it's only 10 prints or 20 prints that somebody puts out, it really does add up. And for those 20 kids who maybe have unfortunately had so much taken away from them to be able to get something, it makes a huge difference for them. No, it's really cool hearing you do that. And no, I hope it encourages other people who listen to this out there to participate in it, because it's a really cool thing that as 3D printers, I think we have the ability to do.
I know there's other bigger content creators that will go out of the way to help, but I think some of them also are like, okay, I've got, these are the kind of videos that do well. And okay, post this weird problem and help somebody talk somebody through it is not always the most popular video. Whereas I'd have no problem posting 3 or 4 videos in a row onto responding to somebody going, okay, this is my problem. And I can go, okay, here's the fix I'm having. If you do this and this and this, and then them not having another issue. And okay, here's another video, this and this. I think that to that point, we might be, sometimes we can be the better help, especially because I don't know, like the problem printers tend to not be the $2,000 printers. They tend to be the little $180 printers that we have. As all these big content creators, a lot of them started on smaller printers. But as you progress, you end up with more and more printers. And then the ones that are newer, and not just because that's saying that they don't use these anymore, but the newer ones, just they tend to be better. They tend to be faster. They tend to be more precise, better heating capabilities. People put upgrades on. And it's maybe something that they might not be able to assist as much with because they don't have the parts on their printer that the person having trouble with is. That's one of the things also that I love about being able to post things on TikTok. Part of just how TikTok is ran is that you can scroll through videos the way it is. But if I'm having a problem, I can post the video on there to say, okay, this is my problem. Anybody have a fix, or has anybody had this problem before? And I'll get comments or video replies from people trying to help. Even if they don't know why the problem is occurring or how to fix it, they'll ask questions to see if they can help get you through it. And just having a support group like that, even if it's just a Facebook group or somebody to post on. If you're 3D printing new and you don't know what you're doing, I know we have a group chat, Brady Meets World, we got Bensky, Priority 3D, and Juan Makes, and myself. And just, it's not even just problems, just post, okay, I made this cool thing. And just the positivity and just the, okay, oh God, that's really cool. Like, how did you do that? How does that work? How would you do something like that? Just being there is just, it's a really cool thing, I gotta say. So just having that like pure group is just, it's very important though, I would think.
Just 3D printers in general, I think that community piece of it really is important, especially when you're new to 3D printing. I know for me, like the smallest problem, like my nozzle being clogged, it would take me out of commission with my printer for days. I could not figure it out. And as simple as a problem as it would be, it would be so difficult. But then, I'd post a video on it and 50 people in the comments would be like, do this, try this. And it would work. And it was like having a team of people come in and help you, which it was great. And definitely, I know for me, I really needed that when I was new to 3D printing. And even just, I think there'd be so many times I'd have a problem. I think nobody could have ever experienced this before. This is a 100% one-off problem. And sure enough, 50 people would be like, oh no, that happened to me today. That happened to me last week. And no matter how crazy of a problem it seems like you're having, there's always somebody out there, I think, in 3D printing who has experienced that or much worse before and can help guide you through how to get through it.
One thing I found surfacing a lot of videos for the last couple of months is people who have an AMS system and the PTFE tubing from the AMS system to the printer. After time, the filament will wear a cut in that, and it can actually push itself out of the tube. I would never thought that would be an issue, but I've seen videos of people who, like, they see that video and they're like, what? And then they go check their printer, and
Yeah.
they have this much left. There's like the fraction of a tiny bit of PTFE tubing left. They were almost at a failure. Just the
Yeah.
fact that person was like, oh, this was an issue I had. And they just might have saved somebody a 4 or 5 day print that could
Yeah.
have failed in the last minute or something. Just something like that. I don't know, the 3D print community that we have out there. Yes, there is some negativity. There's going to be anywhere. There are issues that pop up, but it's also really cool seeing, I don't know, like the clap from other creators. I know I mentioned it to you when we started the podcast, but it's called eroticism. I just want to talk to whoever named it that because it makes you not be able to pronounce R as well. You pronounce it as W. So why would you name the word and start it with an R?
Yeah.
It's only in certain phrases because I can say R just fine, but if I say eroticism, it sounds like I'm using a W instead of an R sometimes. I didn't know I had it until one of my first videos got like 400,000 views. There was a video of a dice launcher that was in like a little pistol-like mechanism, and you load
Oh,
like the
yeah.
dice in it, and it'll shoot it out for D&D.
Yeah.
I made it for somebody at work, and I got a lot of comments, Elmer Fudd kind of themed. They got to hunt that wascally rabbit, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I got some pretty nasty comments on there. I actually had to delete some of them, but on that rock video I got some other ones, and then I woke up. I think I was at work and I was on break, and I was like, oh, wow, that was a bad comment. And I see this thing that was like, Brady Meets World posted a video reply. And it's bullying isn't good, but it made me happy because he laid into the guy. And while Brady was like, I feel bad because I'm like, I'm almost bullying the bully. But I think sometimes that's justifiable because you have to stand up for yourself. And personally, I handled it a little different way. I didn't realize the guy was being rude at first. And then reading the more comments, I'm like, oh, wow, that guy actually meant it in a mean way. But just having these people that will go and fight for you. It doesn't seem like a big thing, but it just made me emotional. Some guys are really cool. I have friends now. They like the weird stuff I do. But I don't know, I guess that kind of goes back to having a positive network of people and how the community will circle up and do these nice things. And they're just really pleasant most of the time.
Yeah, it's hearing you talk to this, honestly like melting my heart right now. You get the sour apples out there in the community every now and then, but for the most part, it's always cool to hear that other people have similar experiences of just having really people out there in the 3D printing community. And I'm glad that seems to be continuing on the longer that I've been part of this now. That's really cool to hear. For you, at any point, was it like hard getting like putting yourself out there? Because I know a lot of people message me and they say like they want to get into content, but they're not sure about putting themselves in front of a camera, or they're not sure about just like doing it. Was it hard for you first getting into doing content, and like how did you maybe overcome like getting on camera yourself?
For the first couple months, I didn't actually show myself. I
Yeah.
was filming in front of me. And I will say I'm very comfortable filming myself. But some of my favorite ways are just holding the camera because then, I mean, you can go in and you can come out and you can go, okay, show this little thing, now this little thing, now this, and then come back out. I really doing that kind of video to a point rather than setting your phone up on a tripod where it's just stationary and then you're sitting there and just talking, which, I mean, works great for something like a podcast. I was not entirely comfortable with doing it, and I still feel weird filming in front of people. Because I mentioned
Oh,
my
like in
filming.
person?
Yeah, my filming area is in our
Yeah.
dining room. So our living room's right there. And my boyfriend's sitting to watch TV. I'm like, okay, can you pause the TV for a minute? And then I'm like, I feel flustered. Like, I can't collect. Okay, how was I even going to start this video? I'm like, is he watching me? And he's not. And I like glance up and I'm like, oh my God, he was watching me. I can't do this. It's weird. I don't know why I get like that. I'm more than happy to just go into the bedroom quick for a few minutes if
Yeah.
I want to do a video, if I just can't collect myself. But it's not always about, okay, you're going to go overcome this. You do your video and, oh, you're going to be great. It does take getting used to. It's something that you have to do what you're comfortable with. I wasn't comfortable at first. I think it was like 3, 4 months before I even showed my face on camera. I started thinking, I'm like, if I could be the one of those people I hit 5,000 followers. Now here's my face.
Yeah.
Wow. But I didn't do that. I don't remember what video it was, but I posted it and I'm like, oh, I didn't die of embarrassment. Wow, that was cool. But yeah, I don't know. Content's a kind of an odd thing. It's not for everybody. I do it a lot because I enjoy doing it, just for the fun aspect of it. I think especially, I know a lot of 3D printers have ADHD. I don't know if
No.
that's coincidental Or if that seems to be a specific pattern, but I like to be able to do my stuff and I just let it go.
Yeah.
I just let it do its thing. I can't sit there and do things for hours and hours like these people who can do helmets. I don't know
Yeah.
how you can sand for 3 hours. I have a lot of trouble doing that. Just being comfortable with something that other people are immediately comfortable with, I might not be. And it's something that you have to play to your comfort level. And doing content doesn't mean you have to do a face-to-face thing. You might film all of your content never showing yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people do that with masks. They'll have a mask on their content. Oh, it's a DJ Marshmallow. He's got a helmet
Oh
with a
yeah.
marshmallow
Yeah.
head. I don't know if people know what he looks like. I don't know if he does that because it's cool or just because he feels awkward. But that can also raise, once people can't see who you are, you tend to feel a little bit more confident. So
Yeah.
you might act a lot weirder than you are in person.
Yeah.
But I enjoy doing it. What you have me here, what you see of me online, that's me.
Yeah.
I'm not going, okay, this is Dorkvader 3D printing. He's a different kind of person. He's acting different. That's just how I am. I'm weird and odd, and I collect strange stuff.
Yeah. I think that's what's so lovable about your content. You talked about how some of your content's 3D printing and some of it's not. And that's another thing I hear people talk about. They're like, I don't know, I'm my name on here is such and such 3D. I don't know if I can post anything besides 3D printing. And I always love to see people's lives outside of the main thing that they're known for. I think that's so cool. And no, I completely agree. I think all the things that you said are definitely very relatable. And it's funny hearing you talk about how filming in front of your boyfriend. I'm the same way. I'm like, go in the other room. I can't film this video if you're sitting here. No, it's very relatable hearing you talk about that. One of the things you mentioned in there was having a short attention span and not necessarily wanting to stand for 3 hours. I'm curious if you're somebody like me, do you have a lot of projects going on in the background right now that are maybe half finished or partly finished?
I try not to have multiple projects at a time, but when something like what we do with 3D print cares, that does put
Yeah.
everything I have on hold.
Yeah.
There are some projects I want to start on. I made a model for hanging Christmas lights, clips into aluminum
Oh,
fascia, so then I don't have to put holes in anything out there because we just
oh,
finished
cool.
recladding the house, which was a pain. But it's so worth it because it looks so much better. But I made the model and I'm like, okay, now I can print this. I bought PET G and I've never used it, so I have to figure out how to use it.
Nice.
Then 3D print care stuff popped up. I'm like, well, I can't do this yet. Another thing I have is I have a cosplay I'm working on, a Star Wars one, which for the level of Star Wars nerd that I would consider myself, it's weird that I don't have a Star Wars cosplay.
Yeah.
But I picked a almost fully armored character and I am slightly regretting it now. But I will say that even just doing stuff like that, doing that helmet over there behind me, without people that have hyped me up, that helmet I did for Bensky's DC helmet challenge. I would not have considered doing that. He did the challenge. I think he just tagged me people who wanted to do that, and I was like, oh, I guess I could try that.
Yeah.
I picked a file, I started printing it, and then after I printed it, I found a way to hold it together. Just people that have hyped me up, even just doing this podcast, made me say, you can do it. You're good at this stuff. And me thinking, okay, I'm posting this odd content. I don't know why people are following me. I still don't fully understand it sometimes. That many people out there enjoy the same things that I do or the things that I post. Just having people that just push me like, okay, get out of your comfort zone. Try this. It's gotten me to a lot of different content that I never would have tried, or just posting stuff, or being on this podcast, honestly. Especially if I follow you for so long, you feel like a celebrity kind of to me.
Likewise, having you on here today, I've really enjoyed your content recently and having you on. I feel like I know so much about you and different crazy things that having you go on. So it's really fun getting to talk to you today. Final question I'll leave you with here is we talked a lot about current projects you had, past projects you had. Is there any maybe one project in the back of your mind that you really wanted to do and just haven't started yet?
I would say one that I've been wanting to do for a while is I've been wanting to do armor.
Okay.
One that I really wanted to do, but I don't have the files for it, and I haven't been able to find some of the files, is Thranduil from Lord of the Rings, his battle armor. I really wanted to make that. But there's a lot of aspects that I don't know with where I am in 3D printing, I should say, that I am ready to try that. But I'm also embarking on this full armor costume where it's going to have mask, it's going to be bracers, there's going to be like pauldrons, a full bunch of different parts. It's got printed in chest piece, it's got like leg pieces, foot cover pieces. I think just something like that would be something that I've been wanting to print for a while, but I've been scared to because I didn't not necessarily think that I can't because I don't know how for sure, and then I don't feel comfortable trying.
Yeah.
But Mike from Priority 3D and Nick from One Makes have been absolutely amazing in helping me out with any questions I have. Firstly, I made the braces, and I realized that I don't know how to attach these, so I sent pictures to them. I don't know what to do. Oh yeah, just do Velcro and elastic. If you can get magnets, just pull in tight. This is how you scale your chest piece. Just go here to here, a half-inch less. Easy. I'm just like, I feel like I can do this now. I didn't feel like I could before, but now I do. It's cool just feeling like that. Knowing that if I come across something that I don't know how to do, especially for me as a person where I want to have a plan. And so often when you're trying something new, you can't have a plan because you don't know what's going to happen or what might come up. Having these people who either are really clever at just coming up with something on the fly or have done so much of this that they just know, just being able to reach out for them and they'll respond back pretty quick. Sometimes a couple minutes, these guys they're there, and it's just really nice being able to have that support group to lean against sometimes.
No, it's awesome having that support group. And with that said, I hope that you do get to that armor piece. And I'm super excited to see you. And for whatever reason, if people aren't following you already, they need to. Where can people find you online? Where can they just follow along with your projects?
Actually, the only place I'm online at the moment is TikTok. I think my @handle is like Dorkvader97, but that's why I started at. Right now, I'm Dorkvader 3D Prints. You guys can find me on there though. My logo, I want to get a logo someday. That just reminded me of that. Sorry, ADHD moment. My profile picture is, like you mentioned, the Mad Hatter cosplay of mine that I really love. So that should be easy to spot.
Josh, again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to sit down, let us get to know you more. It was a pleasure. Looking forward to your future projects. And with that said, that is Meet the Makers.